Well, hi. Hope you're doing okay. This evening, we are going to work on some skills that will be helpful for your Project 03 exercises. So this project is pretty straightforward. I'm limiting you to working with 5 shapes. To be specific, it's going to be 4 squares and 1 circle. And then there is a list of words that have certain sort of connotations or attributes that you are going to design and display with your 5 shapes. So we're going to work with a few new tools. And to begin, you're going to set up a new canvas. So we're just going to go to File, New. I'm going to have you design these to be, not pixels, to be 6 by 8 inches if it's going to be a rectangle, or 6 by 6 inches if you'd like to work with a square. So let's say I'm going to work with a square for my demo. I'm going to put my resolution at 150. So I have 6 by 6 inches, or 6 by 8 if you're going to do a rectangle. I'm going to do resolution 150. And then in color mode, it's just going to be grayscale, just to keep these are smaller files. You might have noticed there, if I'm an RGB, my image size over here is 2.3 megs. But if I shift to only one channel, the grayscale, it's 1/3 of that, or only 800 kilobytes. 8-bit will be fine for this, since we're just doing some very simple black and white and gray work. Well, this one's black and white. Okay, so there's my 6 by 6 at 150. So how do you go about making squares kind of easily in Photoshop? What do we do with our layers? You worked a lot with the line tools in the last tutorial, so I know that you'd remember, hopefully you'd remember how to go over and use your, how to use your pencil or your brush tool over here. There we go, brush tool or pencil tool. Of course, you can vary the dimensions of that from the toolbar up at the top. I'm going to show you 2 ways to work with some simple shapes. The first way will be this selection marquee. So the second one down over here in the toolbar, if you click and in that little triangle, you can select from a rectangle or an ellipse or elliptical. Let's start with the rectangle first. So I've said 4 squares and a circle. So a rectangle is not quite a square. Of course. So one way to get a square, the only way to easily get a square here, we're going to deselect that. Select deselect, by the way, which is the Command D. If you don't know that already, I'm just going to use this keystroke Command D. It's pretty common. You'll get used to that. But again, picking that rectangular marquee tool over here, if you hold down the Shift key, it automatically becomes a square. The rectangle is constrained into being a square. And you can see I'm just pulling it and deciding what dimensions it's going to be. Okay, I'm going to deselect that. Similarly, if you would like to make a circle, and you will, 1 per design, there we go to the ellipse. And again, of course, you have this ellipse, but if you hold down the Shift key, it becomes a circle. So a rectangle becomes a square, the ellipse becomes a circle by holding down the Shift key. So that's pretty swell. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here, going to make myself a new layer by just touching that new layer icon. Alternatively, you can go layer, new layer, your choice. Okay. Why am I doing that? Just because then you'll have a much easier time sort of repositioning your circles and your squares. So let's say I would like to have, I'd say I'm going to work with the word trap. And I imagine I'm going to have a small little forlorn circle down in the corner that's just sort of being crushed by some oppressive squares. Kind of straightforward sort of narrative there. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I am going to then just draw out this circle. Maybe I'll go over the dimensions of the square just a little. Okay. I could fill this now. How would I do that? Edit, fill. By doing that, I'm not going to do that for this first one. I'm going to go edit stroke, which is going to actually basically draw a shape around the edge that I've predetermined. So I've determined that to be a circle. my stroke width, you're going to have to learn sort of the relationship between the pixels that you pick here, 8 or 40 or 2, not 42 but 2. So the dimensions or the relationship between these pixels and the dimensions of your canvas are important. So I have picked a canvas, remember, that's 6 by 6 inches at 150. So that'll make this stroke a certain kind of dimension. You're just going to have to sort of play with that and get used to it. I'm going to, let's say, pick pixel dimension 8. I'm going to have black for this. You can pick inside the selected circle, in the center, or outside. Your choice. Sometimes that can matter when you're making designs. I'm just going to go for the center, so it'll be right on that that dotted line down here that we see. Blending modes, let's ignore those for the time being. Opacity 100%, very true. So basically I've just picked a dimension, a color, and a location. I'm going to say OK. And then that draws me an 8 pixel stroke. I'm going to undo that by just doing the Command Z key. Let's go back in and try a pixel dimension of just 2. And you can see that it would be a much smaller or thinner stroke. And one more time, let's do a stroke of 30. This will be pretty bold. There we are. So among those choices, and I'm undoing this again just by doing the Command Z. You can undo it up here if you would like that way. So I'm going to go back and do that stroke at about 6. Okay, and there it is. And it still has that selection of marching ants. So you're going to need to deselect that, or again the Command D key. And there is your circle. So if you pick the Move tool, which is the V, or you can go up here to the top tool, you can move that sucker around. Because because I positioned it at the edge, it did crop it off, but I like it down there. If you had drawn the circle in the middle, then you'd have more choices. Okay, let's make another layer. Oh, here, maybe I'll name that. I'm going to click on it, double click it, and call that circle, just because I'm nerdy. Okay, great. Going to make another layer. Now let's make a square. I'm going to show you how to make a square in a couple different ways. So we're going to go to the rectangular marquee. I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and I'm going to just pull that out. Edit, fill. Okay, I'm going to make a solid black square here. Edit, fill. Color, or contents, color, I'm going to go to black. Now, interestingly, we'll do this throughout the semester, but if you picked on the color picker, you could select a color. Now, I'm working with only a grayscale file, so it would be useless for me to pick these other colors because I can't apply them. But that is what you would do in this case, so it's nice to know how to use that tool. I'm just going to go for the black down here. Again, we're going to ignore the blending and the opacity for the time being. I'm going to say OK, and that fills my square with black. It is still selected, so I'm going to Command D to unselect that. You might remember how we did the transform tools in a previous demo. We can still do those, so we have the chance here to come over and maybe rotate that. So let's say I would like to sort of rotate that and reposition it. I'm still up here in the, the Move tool is active if I'm in Transform. Push that around. Maybe have this one like really pressing against that sucker. Not too subtle, my narrative here. When you're happy with the transformation, hit the Return key. That commits your transformations. Now this one should still be a full square, right? So see how this one is different. Because I created this square entirely within my canvas, when I move it off, it still remains a complete square. Unlike the circle that I made, remember I made that circle off of the canvas, so it's actually cropped from the very beginning. So it might be advantageous for you to actually craft your squares or your shapes in the canvas itself, and then you can always move them around and decide what kind of relationship you want to have. Okay, so there we are, square number 1. Let's do another one of those. Oh, let's have a bombastic, like giant one up here. Why not? Blah, blah, blah. I think I'm gonna, well, I'll follow my own rule. I will edit, fill that with black. It's pre-selected as black. It was the last thing we did. Okay, there it is. Now maybe I will move this up here as if it's just gonna, oops, sorry. As if it's going to come into the picture plane. So I'm going to deselect that, sorry, and then I can move it. I had to deselect it in order to move it. Maybe I'll just put this guy right up there, see if I can make it look pretty awkward. Okay, case in point.